What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Jesse Hughes Show. We've got a lot to discuss tonight, and a lot of it is very important and very serious. Black Lives Matter tried to tell you that black people in America were being pulled over randomly, were being murdered in the street by racist police officers. What Black Lives Matter tried to tell you is happening in America actually just happened in Britain. A young boy named Henry Nowak, a university student, was out and about one night. He was playing around on Snapchat. He was saying he saw a Sikh man with a large dagger, and knives are banned in the UK, except the Sikh community has an exception for religious purposes. He started filming this guy saying, "Oh, you're bad. Oh, you're bad. Are you a bad man?" And the guy replied, "Yes, I am a bad man," and proceeded to stab him 5 times. All because he was white. All because he was just this white kid. And when the police got there, the police did not believe Henry that he had been stabbed, but actually believed the Sikh man and his family, who hid the dagger and said that Henry had been shouting racial slurs at the Sikh man. Now, the police did not believe Henry that he had been stabbed. They instead believed this family. And instead of arresting the man who attacked Henry, they read Henry his rights and told him that they didn't believe that he had actually been stabbed, as he was lying on the pavement bleeding. This is, of course, insane. This is utterly despicable. All because Henry was a white kid, and this was a minority who had immigrated to the United Kingdom. The minority who actually committed the crime was believed, while the white kid was discredited and allowed to bleed out and die on the pavement. After being read his rights, the last thing that he heard was his rights being read to him, despite doing nothing wrong. All because of the accusation of racism, the simple charge of racism. There was no evidence to prove that there was any racist motivation behind Henry Nowak talking to this man. In fact, there's nothing on camera that shows any sort of racial talk whatsoever. He simply sees the knife and says, "Oh, you're a bad man." And this guy attacks him for it. All the while, the man who actually did the attacking gets treated with kids' gloves, gets taken down to the station without handcuffs, gets told he can get whatever he wants to eat. It's utterly despicable. Black Lives Matter told you that a man like George Floyd, who died of a fentanyl overdose, was the product of a racist police system that was discriminating against blacks. That was, of course, not true. But what was true is that there was a racist police system in the United Kingdom discriminating against whites. Henry Nowak is who the left tried to tell you that George Floyd was. Henry Nowak is what Black Lives Matter tried to tell you was happening in America. The only difference is he was white. And for too long, white people in Western countries have been treated like second-class citizens solely on the basis of their skin color. We were told during the rise of critical theory that we had to apologize for being white. That whiteness was a disease. That because you are white, you are the cause and the source of every single bad thing that has ever happened in all of human civilization. Utterly insane. But now the British people are standing up against it. Now the British people are marching in the streets, chanting, ironically, "I can't breathe," which was Henry's last words. "I can't breathe. I've been stabbed." The British people are marching through the streets saying, "No justice, no peace." And they are demanding accountability from the police who allowed this to happen. They're demanding accountability towards the immigrant invasion that has taken over their country. Mass immigration is just not an issue in the United States. It's an issue across the entire West. The West, the product of Christian civilization, the product of millennia of progress and advancement unlike anything that we've seen in human history. It is now being threatened by mass immigration. And I'm not trying to tell you, because I don't believe, that white people are any better or any worse than anybody else just off the basis of their skin color. I think civilizations can be superior to one or another. I think that countries can be superior to one or another. But I'm not someone who believes that white people are superior just based off their skin color. But I am someone who believes that it is unacceptable in Western civilization that white people are treated like second-class citizens based solely on a radical Marxist theory that posited that they are somehow the arbiter of every single bad thing that ever happened because of their skin color. I do think that it's unacceptable that white children have to live in fear of walking down the street and randomly getting attacked by a random migrant, whether they get stabbed, whether they get attacked by a Pakistani rape gang, like what is common in the United Kingdom, whether they get stabbed at a track meet, like Austin Metcalf here in the United States, where a simple dispute where he went over and said, "Hey man, you're sitting in my seat," turned into a black kid stabbing him in the stomach and murdering him. Or like Irina Zarutska, the Ukrainian refugee on the train in Charlotte, who was brutally attacked and stabbed in the neck by a random man on a subway, a black man, who then got up and said, "I got that white girl. I got that white girl." White people shouldn't be afraid to live in their own country just because they're white. We shouldn't have these issues going on. And mass immigration is part of the problem. It's not the entire problem. There's tons of problems here that we need to discuss in the United States when it comes to certain communities and how they treat criminal activity in their communities. But that's a different discussion for a different time. Henry Nowak was murdered because of mass immigration. Henry Nowak's blood is on the hands of every single Western politician who decided it would be acceptable to open up the borders of their country to the third world simply so they could make a little extra money and so that big business wouldn't have to spend as much on labor. It's utterly despicable and disgusting and sad, and we should not tolerate it any longer. The answer to this problem is simple. The West needs to enact remigration. Remigration. There are millions of people in the United States, in Britain, in France, in Germany, all across the West, who have immigrated either legally or illegally to the country of their choice, who do not care for that country, who do not try to assimilate to that country's values, but simply go there to better themselves. They don't care about the heritage. They don't care about anything else. Those people do not belong in these countries any longer. They need to be sent home. They need to be denaturalized and deported. Here in the United States, we have politicians pushing for that. Congressman Andy Ogles in Tennessee introduced the Assimilation Act that would repeal Hart-Celler, return us to a system of immigration quotas, and would allow for easier denaturalizations and deportations of legal immigrants. In the UK, you've got thousands of people taking to the streets in London and in every major city across the UK right now, chanting, "We need remigration." The tide is turning on mass immigration. We were sold a bill of goods, and we were told that this would better our societies. We were told that diversity is our strength and that multiculturalism would be a benefit and a blessing. I don't know about you, but I don't consider being stabbed 5 times and then treated by the police as if you were the aggressor on nothing but an accusation to be a blessing. Nations that do not have coherent, united cultures do not survive. We don't have to agree on everything. Subcultures have always been a thing. Look at the United States. The South is different from the Midwest, which is different than the North, which is different than the West Coast. There are regional differences and regional cultural differences that are beautiful, and we should celebrate that. But for most of America's history, there were core cultural values that every American could agree with, that every American held dear. That doesn't exist anymore because of mass immigration, because there are people here who did not care about those cultural values or that cultural heritage, moved in, decided to try and make the community that they moved into exactly like what they just left. They don't need to be here. If you want to come to the United States and you want to actually assimilate and speak English and assimilate to our values and our culture, after a temporary immigration moratorium, sure, come on in. We'll take you in. But if you are someone who just wants to come here to defraud American citizens, like the Somalis, or to benefit yourself, never learn any English, and potentially even attack and kill our citizens, like what happened over in Britain, you do not deserve to be here. You need to be sent home. Moratoriums and remigration are the only way we're going to solve this immigration crisis. And it seems as though the tide is turning in those directions, and that is a very good thing, a welcome change that I am happy to see. So continue to push for justice for Henry Nowak. Continue to push for justice for this kid. He deserves it. Continue to advocate for policies when it comes to immigration that actually take into account the heritage and the culture and the wants and needs of the people who are already in your country. We don't need to be inviting foreigners in and then trying to assimilate ourselves to their values. If someone wants to immigrate here, then they have to assimilate to our way of life. That is the only way. That is the only way that immigration could ever work and will ever work. The melting pot was a lie. The nation of immigrants line was a lie. Diversity is our strength is a lie. There are millions of people that need to be sent back. And luckily, we have people in Washington, D.C. who actually care about this issue that are working on just that thing. It might take some time, but we have people working on it. And that is a glad thing to see. Now we're going to move on here. Pray for Henry and his family. We're going to move on here. Take a sip. Before we move on, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Deus Volt Lapel Pens. Go to deusvoltlapelpens.com and use my code ChristFamilyNation26 for 10% off your next order. This is a totally based company. They sell totally based lapel pens. You guys are not going to want to miss this opportunity. Go to deusvoltlapelpens.com. Use my code ChristFamilyNation26 for 10% off. Go do it now. We're going to move on, and we're going to talk a little bit about some primaries that happened last night. We had some more primary chaos. First, I want to take a look at Iowa, where there was a very strange situation that happened that has a lot of people talking and almost landed me in a little bit of hot water with people who I consider to be my friends earlier today. So you had two individuals primarily. There was more than just that, but you had two individuals running for governor in Iowa. Randy Feenstra, a congressman, and Zach Lamb, who was a conservative activist who ran for Iowa governor. On Friday of last week, Feenstra got the endorsement from President Trump. Feenstra was not doing good in the polls. Feenstra was not doing good at all. People in Iowa really did not like Randy Feenstra. They thought that he was a Trump hater, which he has a history of saying anti-Trump comments. They thought that he was just another puppet of the deep state. They did not like Feenstra at all. And yet, for some reason unknown to me, Donald Trump endorsed Feenstra, probably because he thought that Feenstra was somebody who could be easily controlled and go along with what Trump says. At around the same time, you had Turning Point USA endorse Zach Lane. Is it Lan? Is it Lane? I believe it's actually Lane. You had Turning Point USA endorse Zach Lane. This was a very rare occurrence where Turning Point USA and President Trump diverged on something. Usually we think of Turning Point in a very MAGA camp. Well, Turning Point Action got on the ground. They got their activist base out. They got a bunch of college kids out to door knock for Zach Lane. And he ends up winning the primary last night. And there's been a lot of reaction. So Zach Lane ran a campaign combining conservative Christian values with the Maha movement. And it proved in 2024 to be a winner. And it has proven over and over again to be a winning coalition. Conservative Christians and the Maha movement. That is a winning coalition. But a lot of people are a little bit concerned about Lane because apparently he rode the podcast circuit. And by the podcast circuit, I mean some of the usual retard right suspects who have been going crazy calling President Trump a pedophile protector, saying that Trump is betraying his base. He went on the podcast circuit and got interviews with some of those people. Now, Zach Lane himself has not been critical, as far as I can see, of Donald Trump. He never really talked about Trump during his race. He really just kind of kept it to the issues, kept it to Iowa, gave some kind, flattering words to Trump here or there, but he never made the race about Trump, which has been the downfall of some candidates like Casey Push up in Ohio or Thomas Massie over in Kentucky. They take an anti-Trump stance, they become unnecessarily critical of Trump, and their support goes out the window. They lose their primaries. Zach Lane didn't do that. Another common trend with people like Massie and Push is that they overly focused on Israel. And in this race, AIPAC endorsed Randy Feenstra. So a lot of people, they saw this victory and they said, ha, see, AIPAC can be defeated. Well, what did Zach Lane have to say about Israel? Literally nothing. He did not talk about it one time during this campaign. He kept his focus on Iowa and Iowa alone. So what are the lessons that we can take away from this? Well, for one, Turning Point USA is a very powerful force in Republican politics and is the future of the party. For two, if you're going to go against a Trump-endorsed candidate, which in a lot of cases you probably shouldn't do, Trump has endorsed some great people. Look at J.D. Vance, look at Ron DeSantis. They would not be where they are now if it were not for the Trump endorsement. But every so often, Trump will endorse a bad candidate that the base isn't exactly enthusiastic for. So if you're going to run against that person, don't be overly unnecessarily critical of Trump and don't talk about Israel. And it seems like you have a winning combination there. It looks that way. And then the third thing that we can learn from this is that the Maha movement is still a pretty big part of the Trump coalition and can still sway elections. Now, I've seen some people that have been critical of Maha because certain people in the Maha sphere might be a little bit crazier than others. I get it. However, it's a winning strategy. Just don't be insane. Don't be insane and you should be good. That's a pretty good strategy for all of life. Don't be insane and you should be good. Now, Trump is still king of the Republican Party. This is one loss in a slate of hundreds of endorsements. Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party. He still has a great deal of control over the party. And he still deserves our loyalty and support. And I still support Trump. Nothing that I'm saying should be construed as me trying to go against Trump for some reason. As a tweet that I made this morning made people think that I was trying to do. I'm not trying to go against Trump. I'm not trying to go against Turning Point USA. All that I'm saying here is that Trump is still president and deserves our loyalty and support. He is still the kingmaker right now. Turning Point USA, on the other hand, though, has a very powerful machine behind them. And when Trump inevitably moves on, because there is going to be an end to the Trump era at some point, he's not going to live forever. He can't be president forever. Turning Point USA is the next in line and the best organization that we have to carry on the mantle. They've proven they've got a ground game. They've proven that they can get their candidates to victory. They've proven that they are the most effective organization we have when it comes to turning people out to vote. Turning Point USA is who you want to get behind if you're going to run for office. Turning Point USA is who you need to get behind if you think that you want to have any role whatsoever in the future of the conservative movement. That is a very important thing that we all need to be aware of. Now, let's turn to California for a minute, because there's some funny things happening out in California as well. You've got Spencer Pratt running for LA mayor, and it looks like he's actually going to do pretty good. And you've also got Steve Hilton running for California governor, and he also looks like he's doing pretty good. In fact, last time I checked, he was leading the polls. However, I'm not going to talk about the polling or the vote count or anything like that right now. I'm not going to talk about Steve Hilton or Spencer Pratt or their chances. Plenty has been said by others smarter than me on that subject. Instead, what I would like to focus in on is the fact that California is going to take over a month to count its ballots. You go on the Secretary of State's website right now, and it says it will be about 39 days until results are available. I'm sorry, what? In the United States of America, there is no reason whatsoever that we should have any state that is taking more than one night to count ballots and to figure out who won a primary. This is dripping with evidence of fraud, of neglect, of all sorts of impropriety. This is insane. You should be able to count your ballots today. The results should be available right now. But it's going to take them over a month to figure out who won these races, and we'll move on to the general election in November. That is absolutely insane. And I posted this early today. I'm going to say it again. California needs to be brought under federal control because they cannot run this state. They have proven they cannot run the state. The feds need to come in and take control. That is the only way that we can get any of this sorted out. We need the feds to take control of the election process, take control of the governorship, clean up the crime, deport the illegals, do everything necessary, because California is on its way to hell. And as much as we like to joke about letting California fall off the side of the coast and everything, it is one of the most beautiful states in our union. It has a beautiful history and heritage. We can't just let it fall like this. Something needs to be done. We need to take control of California. Newsom, you tried your best. You can't handle it, man. You just can't. We need the feds to come in and do what they need to do. That is the solution to this issue. It needs to happen, and it needs to happen soon. So that's my thoughts on what's going on over in California. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to have another pre-recorded edition on Friday. I can't wait to see you guys there. This has been live. We're going to do live every Wednesday, Monday, and Friday. We're going to do some pre-recorded stuff. I hope you guys like the new format that we're trying out. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. If you're watching on YouTube, smash like, hit subscribe. If you're watching on X, hit follow, smash the like button, share this with all your friends. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star review. Thank you guys again. God bless you so much. Thank you for tuning in. God loves you and so do I. Have a great night.